Michael Volkin. Thank you so much for appearing on the EntrepreNudist podcast.
You bet. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Man, for real, for real. So if you don't mind, can you introduce yourself to the people who will be watching and what you do?
Sure. Well, I'm a marketing consultant, more specifically a marketing consultant for internet companies. I've built and sold 4 companies of my own, so I'm, to say, an entrepreneur myself as well. But I spend my times now helping other companies complete that same cycle that I went through 4 times myself. Building their company up to where it has enough value and then being able to sell it.
Oh, so when you say you built up 4 companies, does that mean you built and sold at least 3 of them, or you still are operating manager?
No, I have built and completely exited 4 different companies, and I have a couple in the works right now that I'm starting up.
Okay. So the first time that happened, was it because I'm assuming if you're like myself and most people, one of the things that probably never crossed your mind was even owning your own business. But once you got a business going, you got a brand going, you built some goodwill, were you always intending on selling it, or did that just happen by accident?
No, it didn't. I didn't intend on selling it. I knew that was eventually the end of the road. There's 2 things that can happen to a business. Either you sell it or it just dissolves on its own merit. Unfortunately, literally thousands of companies do that every single day. They just dissolve on their own merit, even ones with lots and lots of value. So if you even wanted to, if people are listening to this show and even wanted to buy a company, there's a lot of opportunity out there. But no, I mean, to answer your question, I went ahead and I built up a company. I lost interest in it after a while and just thought, what's the next steps? It has some value. I just don't want to let it go. And so I started the process of selling it.
What, in retrospect, what was the first indicators of you losing interest, to use your words?
Yeah, when it was in the real estate industry, and I didn't really like the ups and downs of the real estate industry. And I didn't like, to be honest with you, I was getting sued by quite a few different people for things that were absolutely not my fault. I was a franchise owner, and I franchised the company into 15 different offices. I had 5 states where offices were located. And I was getting like lawsuits on my door, like a few of them over a year, but that's still enough to drop your heart and be like, oh my God. It's like people I've never met suing me just because they think I have deep pockets and because they moved into a house and their carpet wasn't ready or cleaned properly. And then they go all the way to the franchisor and try to sue them. So even if I had nothing to do that was wrong with it, it still cost me a few $1,000s every time I got those letters dropped. I had to bring it to my attorney. I had to contact their attorney. We had to write letters and do negotiations. I mean, that's, that on top of other stuff. I just realized the real estate industry was either lightning hot or ice cold. I didn't like owning a company that was like that. It just wasn't for my personality.
So is the term for that, is that litigious industry, or am I using that word wrong?
That's a good word. Yeah. That's one word, litigious. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So in that instance, was that the first and only time you got involved with a franchise, or it was just that franchise in that industry?
Yeah, no, that was the first and only time. I learned the franchise industry soup to nuts during that whole process. I hired an agency. It was like $100,000, and they came in and they created all the documents for me, all the licenses. They filed in all 50 states. Like, it was a year-long process, and there was a team of people involved in it. And I knew nothing. Looking back on it now, I definitely wouldn't have franchised. I would have just kept doing what I was doing because life was fantastic. The real estate market was hot, and I was absolutely crushing it in my local market. I was, in my late 20s and just living the dream life. I would show up and just like checks were literally being dropped off every day by UPS that I could just cash. And then I decided, what's the next level? Let me franchise like what all the other real estate companies done. And that was a young entrepreneur's mistake. I should have solidified my area a little bit more, but hey, you know what? I learned the most from my mistakes, honestly. And that's one of the main mistakes I've made as an entrepreneur.
So, I mean, so you already said what one of the cons were of, when I say con, I don't mean like a con, but I mean like one of the negatives of being with the franchise, which was people looking at you thinking you have deep pockets. Therefore, before even trying to negotiate with you on a person-to-person level, they're going to take it to the attorneys in a lot of instances. What are some of the pros that you observe with being a part of a franchise and other people that you know in franchises?
Yeah, good question. Franchising is all about processes, and I'm a processes guy. I love to set up things that are repeatable and scalable. So I really enjoyed that part of having somebody take over something that I've developed, a business model in a certain area, apply it to their model in the least amount of resistance as possible. Like they came to my location in Northern California for a week-long training. They were given a document, a manual document that they can follow. And then from that, they can spur their own business as easy as possible. These are brokers that have been in business for 20 something years and never really had anything great from a growth perspective. And they took on my quote unquote operations manual and training, and they made it their own, and they started growing a big company. That was really exciting to me to see that.
Mm-hmm. So after you lost interest, and I was actually talking to somebody who's going into the franchise model, and they do have plans of hopefully going out. But one of the benefits that they saw, like you mentioned, that processes are already in place. Usually is already good. Already the company already has goodwill. So people are going to come. It's kind of the same as when a moving company goes and buys the rights to a story, as opposed to writing the exact same story with different characters. People already have an emotional attachment to that brand.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, from my perspective, owning a franchise was the next natural step. But for somebody who has been a business owner for a long time, especially in the real estate industry, you can be a great real estate agent, but know nothing about marketing, and you could not have a very much business at all because you don't know. It takes marketing to grow a company and sales. And a lot of people don't have that skill set. I do, but that's when a franchise is good, is when you need a program to follow in order to grow. You might be a specialist plumber, real estate agent, whatever, but you don't know much about marketing and sales. That's when a franchise would really help you out.
Oh yeah, get paid while you learn. And
yeah, exactly.
And learn while you get paid. All right,
right.
So you learned your lesson. Like you said, you learned your biggest lessons from your failures, which I do, and the successful people who I read say the same thing. Right after you learned that lesson about being a part of a franchise, what was the very next industry that you got into?
Oh, good question. By the way, you got soft there in the last 15 seconds or so, your volume.
Okay.
I got, but I'll answer that.
You got me too relaxed.
Yeah, you actually, I don't know if you hit something on your computer, but you're like half the volume you were before. But nonetheless, I'll answer your question. I did hear the question. It's about, what was the next industry I got into? It was a fitness industry. I was kind of a fitness buff. I kind of still am. But back in the day, when I was in my 20s, now I'm in my 40s, fitness was a big part of my life. And I had an idea for a product. I was in the airport a lot traveling. And I just had trouble in the hotels just working out. They had one treadmill and a set of dumbbells. And I was like, man, this is not good. So I developed a fitness product, and I wound up growing it to people in 20 different countries were buying it. It got really big, really fast, from idea to exit, meaning from when I thought hey, is this an idea for a product, to somebody sending me a 6-figure check to buy out the company, was 27 months. So it was a really good run for me. That was my fastest exit in my second company I sold. And the company's still alive today. It's stack52.com. One of my customers just wrote me and said, hey, I really love your product. Are you by any chance interested in selling? And I said, not really. I like it. It's a good business and it's really easy. It was just like a side hustle. And he just made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And I was kind of already knee deep into another project anyway. So I'm like, great, this will give me a nice cash infusion to finish up this other company I was working with.
And I heard you mention Stack52. Now, I never heard of it, but you said it like it's a familiar word. What does Stack52 do?
Yeah, Stack52 is a series of playing cards that you can take with you, and every card has a different exercise on it, and you can play different card games like Go Fish or War, and then you can play cards with yourself or with a group of people. And it was just a fun way to like throw down cards or do different exercises that were on the cards. And there was even a QR code that would show you the exercise on the card in a video format. So if you just wanted to wave your phone over the card, it'll show you how to do that exercise. So, a common way people would use a card is they would throw down 10 cards and that would be their workout for the day. And every workout was completely different, just like every poker hand is different, right? So it was a completely new way to kind of work out and get that diversity that you need when you're working out while you're on the go, rather than just hopping on the treadmill or running in strange streets somewhere to try to get a workout.
Oh yeah, and those QR codes, man, I've been on QR codes for a while, but it seems like they're finally starting to work their way into popular culture. When you first put those QR codes on the cards, were a lot of your client, I mean, the people who were purchasing the cards, did you have any data to see who was actually scanning those codes?
That's a good question. I was one of the first people to really adopt QR codes into a fitness product or even just a product in general. Like they were just now coming out with apps that could read QR codes, right? Even now, right now, if you have an iPhone or an Android, you just wave your camera over it and that will read they didn't even have that back in the day. So
like
a lot of, probably the number one question I got was like, hey, what are these squiggly boxes on the right of your card? And then I had to define it. And then I made videos about it and explaining it, but they slowly just gained popularity over time.
Absolutely. So I've never sold a business, but I do know that when some people sell either all or a majority interest in their business, a lot of times what's a part of the deal is retaining some form of management. Is there a reason why your first deal, well, not your second company, the fitness cards, that you sold 100% of your interest as opposed to retaining some equity?
Yeah, it's all everything. That's what's fun about selling a company. Everything's up for grabs for negotiation, right? Right now, I'm trying to buy a company. It's a digital fitness company actually, and we're negotiating a lot of different aspects of. It's not just your purchase price. It's not like real estate, where it's like, here's the price I want to pay for the house, and then that's it, right? So with businesses, you can negotiate upfront cash payment or no payment at all to buy the company, and then like royalties and management after the fact. So in the case with real estate, the person who bought me out as actually a franchise owner of mine, he already been through the training. He knew the operation manual. He didn't really need much from me. So I was just on an as needed call, if you will, with him on every quarter year for that year after I bought the buyout, just for advice only. But the person who bought the fitness company from me needed some training. He was an entrepreneur, but never been in the fitness industry. So I stayed on with him for 5 or 10 hours a week for, I don't know, a month or two after that, until he got a good idea of how to grow the company himself.
Okay.
And
So
he's actually, to his credit, he's grown it like 3 times more than I ever grew it. So, but he's had it for longer, but he's crushing it right now. He's selling tons of cards.
So your model and his model, there's no brick and mortar. It's just cards.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. For the real estate company, I did have quite a few offices, but it did not come with the sale of the company. Like it was a lease that just expired.
Okay, got it. So you're out of the playing card. Very innovative idea. Because I know even some gyms, and typically it's on the weekend. There's a gym here in Jacksonville by the name of Hyperswole. They do like a deck of cards where cool. it's like an actual deck. It's not like a customized deck like your company, but based off if it's a face card or 10 or 9 or 8 would determine what they move. Did that inspire your company?
Actually never heard about that before, but I do know there are people who played games with deck of cards, fitness games, but I only learned about that after the fact. I was on a plane one day, just playing solitaire with myself or something, just killing some time until we landed. I forget what game I was playing. I was like, man, that'd be cool if this is like, there was some kind of exercise in each card. And then I started developing, that's the way my brain works. I just started developing the company from that dumb little idea I had.
Okay, got it. And because I want to see how you go from an idea in your head to writing it down, to forming a plan, to executing. But
yes.
But first, I want to go through the 4 companies that you first mentioned. So we had the real estate, we had the fitness industry. You get rid of your equity in that. What was the next industry?
The next one was ultimatebasictraining.com, which still exists. It's just a way different business model than I had. This was actually the first company I started, but the third one that I sold. This was, I spent 8 years in the military, in the Army. And one of the things that when I got done with basic training, I was like, man, there's a lot of stuff I could have done to prepare for basic training. I had no idea what was coming to me. I joined 3 days after 9/11, 2001, just kind of on a whim, and I was like, man, I bet you there's millions of people that have to join the Army that are in the same position as me. Like they don't know how to deal with drill sergeants. They're not ready for military fitness. So I wrote a book when I got back. I was actually in Iraq and I wrote the book, but I published it when I got back. And the book turned out to be a raging success. It was a bestseller. It was it's called Ultimate Basic Training Guidebook. It's still for sale, actually. So since then, I wrote 2 other follow-up military books that helped recruits. That trilogy of books became a company called ultimatebasictraining.com. So what happens is you bought the trilogy of books and then you got access to a membership site for $9 a month, which was a lot of money back then. This was back, 13, 12 years ago. So they joined for the $9 a month. They got access to other recruits going to basic training. They got even drill sergeants that would come make an appearance, do live webcasts, stuff like this. So I built that company up. And then out of all the people to buy the company, it was a church group that had never been to military basic training. They just said, you know what? We love the site. We love helping veterans. We have some veterans that are a part of our church. And we think that one of them's a drill sergeant. We definitely want to go in and buy this company. And I was like, great. So I stayed on with them for quite a long time, like 4 to 6 months, to really help them understand, because a lot of it was, you have to know about the military. And I was shocked that they wanted to buy it, but they offered me full price for it. So I let them, and they're still running it. So
it was purchased by the entity, the nonprofit church.
Yeah, I don't know if they're a nonprofit, but it's a church, so I'm assuming it is.
The church is nonprofit. If you're a church and you're not nonprofit, then you got other things you need to be talking about to your.
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah, it might have been the church itself that bought it. It might have been the owners of the church that bought it under a separate entity. I don't know, but I do know that they were pastors of a church.
Understood. All right, so you went from real estate to the fitness cards to basic, and you said the Ultimate Basic was your first company prior to real estate. Ultimate Basic Training, right? Yeah. So, and you were, I guess, working that in the background as the other 2 companies were going. So were the books already published before you started your real estate? Books were already published before I started my real estate company, right? Self-published. Yeah. The membership site didn't start till years later, though. So. Okay. Got it. So the church bought you out, and then you did your 6 months of stewardship. I guess we'll call it that. That's a good one. So what was the next industry? Yeah, the last one I had sold, the most recent one, was tennisracket.me, which still exists, just not nearly in its form that I had when I owned it. But I'm a competitive tennis player. So again, the theory is here, like all my companies are just my passions in life. I noticed a pain point or a hole in whatever I'm trying to, accomplish. And then I fill that hole with a business that fills that need, right? So with tennis players, even competitive ones like myself, we have a really hard time picking out rackets because there's a lot of, even though it's just a stick in a little circle with some strings in it, there's a lot of idiosyncrasies to a racket that you have to know in order to really make it like a Harry Potter wand that when you hold it in your hand, it turns into magic. And you know that right one, you're holding right. Yeah. So this algorithm that I developed, you answer 10 questions. This website would ask you 10 questions. You answer them and it would search the internet for the best available racket on the market that would fit your game. So you answered 10 questions about your game. And then we sold ad space and did some affiliate, like people would buy rackets, through our results search. And then we'd get, 10% of the racket sale, that kind of stuff. So that was a little tchotchke business. It didn't make me much money. It made a couple thousand a month, probably at its prime. And then somebody went ahead and bought it out. So tchotchke, what is that? Little knick-knack. Okay. So what was one of the questions? Do you have opposable thumbs? I do, yes. So first question, do you have opposable thumbs? All right, now we know to put you in this section, which probably most people did. So, all right, so when you have an idea, have you noticed that you have the same process? Because everything starts as an idea first. I do. What's your process? How do you get it out of your head? And the first example of its tangible life, what is it when it comes out of your head? Good question. I love taking people through this process because there's so many people that could be great entrepreneurs out there. They go through the process of just getting a job and thinking that's, the way that it has to be, right? But you work for yourself. That is the best job in the world. So my process is I come up with ideas all the time. I even sleep with a notepad by my bed. Most of the time what I do though, is I just log it on my app. I have an Evernote app where I just log all of my business ideas. So whenever I have my phone around, I think, oh, that could be improved, or I should do this. I just note it. And then I let it gel in my brain for a little bit. And if it's still a part of my brain, like in 2 weeks or a month, and I'm still thinking about it,
Then I'll start to do some market research. I'll go, okay, what other companies are out there that are doing this or something similar? It's okay to produce another company that is very similar to one that's out there. You just have to have a different twist on it, different feature, different benefit, different market segment that you're going after. Yeah. I mean, just look at Coke and Pepsi, for example. Coke was rocking and rolling until Pepsi came along, and then it's pretty much the same product, right? They just have different advertising and marketing.
Was that hold on? It was ironic. They were rocking and rolling, right? What used to be the main primary ingredient of Coca-Cola?
I would assume carbonation, right?
Oh, the main ingredient of Coca-Cola was actually cocaine initially.
Oh, really?
So when you said rocking and rolling, I said, okay, that's like Mike's a comedian. That's another one of his businesses.
There you go.
All right. So you write it down in your, what was the name of that app? Evernote. What makes Evernote the app you use opposed to like the Notes app and iPhone?
Oh yeah, it can be anything. Evernote is just really popular because it's cloud-based. So if I have a note on my app, I can just go to the website if I'm on my desktop and just look at all my notes without having to look through my phone.
Is there a fee associated with Evernote?
I'm sorry?
Is there a fee associated with Evernote?
If there is, I haven't paid it. I do get upgrade notices every now and then. I think it's a storage thing. I'm nowhere near. That's only if you like hold pictures and videos and stuff.
Oh, so the trade-off is data. That's one thing that I like. You know, I always want to make sure people think about. Whenever you're getting something for free, which free is great. LinkedIn, Facebook, free. Just remember the trade-off is data. So if you're getting something for free, just know the trade-off, the data there is somewhere. It might be important, it might not. Just remember that's the trade-off. So,
that's true.
All right, so it gels around in your head for 2 weeks, and you decide you want to keep working on it. What's your first step when you keep working?
Yeah, I start just writing a document down, a Word document of all the companies I can find that are in the industry, the closest business model I can find. And then I just chart their pros and cons. What would I do if I started a company that is like this company? What would I do if it wasn't like, what would I do differently, right? So once I have enough market research, I can do some of my own research from my end. Rather than looking outward and doing market research, I can look within myself and say, okay, what would it realistically take for me to start a company like this? How much money would I need? How much time would it take? Right? And then business models start to form from that. And it doesn't have to be anything formal. It's just like, okay, let's get a website up. Like for the tennisracket.me, there was absolutely nothing out there that would take your information and plug it into an algorithm, right? You just had to go to a website that had racket inventory, just start browsing through rackets. So, you know, in that case, there was no formal business model. I just created a website that accepted surveys. And then I got a mathematician to write an algorithm that would take that survey result and search the internet automatically. So it was really a lot of back-end work in terms of web development. Cost a few $1,000s, got that back up to cash flow positive within 3 months. And then from there, it was just a matter of seeing where it would go. That was always a company that was in the background to me. So I never really made it. It had huge potential. Unfortunately, the owner that bought it decided she didn't like being an entrepreneur and never paid much attention to it. So
what was that one of the things that you sold with the company, the algorithm? And did you patent that algorithm?
You can't patent it, an algorithm for at least from what I know, from what I learned, you can't patent technical processes only under very certain circumstances. So no, nothing was patented, but the algorithm was certainly the value of the company there. Like I said, it didn't really create that much revenue. There wasn't much there, but the algorithm was something that I made that you really couldn't replicate. That was a real meat of what that person bought it for.
Got it. Okay. So you're in the business, you're running it. Now I know based off of what you've already said, I guess your decision to sell is either A, when you lose interest, or B, when somebody makes you an offer that you can't refuse. But how do you know? Are there indicators prior to you losing interest and somebody making you an offer that this is a sellable business?
Yeah, I think anything's sellable really, except things that are in your name. Like I can't sell my consulting company because people hire me specifically to do the consulting, right? I can't just offshore that. But I mean, to answer your question, I mean, when you start to lose interest, you can tell because you think, oh my gosh, now I got to work in this company. It almost feels like a chore. When you start to get to that point, then you know I'm starting to lose interest, right? So yeah, I mean, that's the way I determine it. And then to determine if it has value, there's 1,000 different ways. Unlike real estate, where you look at the closest competitor or the closest comparison sale of houses, and that's your sale of your house. The value of a company is so all over the place. You can talk to 3 different brokers and get 10 different answers on what the value of the company is. But generally, you know, I mean, if it's an internet-based company, you're looking at anywhere from 2 to 6 times your gross income, gross revenue rather. So that would be a good indication. Hey, if you're making a couple thousand a month, this could be, you know, a $40,000 or $50,000 sale at a minimum.
Mm-hmm. And, all right. So how does one, how does one get out of one particular business, but not hem themselves up from getting it back into that industry in a timely fashion? Because I imagine there are some people who build up a business, sell it, but then start a company that's almost what the term is used, a lookalike business.
Yeah, you can't do that. Generally, when you closing a business, there is a clause in there that says you are unable to compete in that industry for X amount of years afterwards. At least in all the documents that I signed on all those companies said that. It's usually pretty standard. You can negotiate your way out of it, but most buyers wouldn't like that. You would probably drop the sale if you're just going to clone another business.
Because I guess with you, it's not really a geographical thing, because a lot of your companies were internet based. Mm-hmm. So you can't say I'm not going to compete in, for example, where I live, Jacksonville, Florida. Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't matter if you're not competing in Jacksonville, Florida. This is an internet-based business. If you get back in, we're competing everywhere. So I never actually thought about that. Internet-based business, a part of the non-compete, I guess geographical doesn't play a role. It's worldwide.
It's who you're targeting in the way that you're targeting them. So I can't go after competitive tennis players for the purpose of having them buy a racket, like for 5 years, right? So that was the clause of my sale for that one particular company.
Okay, so what you love to do now is marketing.
Yes.
So can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I'm a consultant now, so entrepreneur coach to be exact. So I will help companies who are wanting to start a company or people that already have companies that just want to scale it. So I just hop on calls with them and advise them, give them my strategic guidance. So
do you feel that the words coach and consultant are interchangeable, or is there a difference to you?
Yeah, good question. Coaches, they are not interchangeable. A coach is someone who gives advice only. A consultant is someone who will implement and actually do some execution of some of the work that they advise.
How do you determine which hat you have on with which client?
Yeah. Good question. Sometimes it's the prospect that comes to me with that intent. They'll say, hey, listen, we're just looking for advice here. Or, hey, we really need someone to get in the weeds and help us with some email marketing or some marketing strategy, right? So that's when I know that there's actual implementation involved rather than just advising.
Okay. So I think I might've told you this, but here's how I first became aware of you.
Okay.
I got an email. I don't know how you got my email, but it was something that I would have been interested in.
Okay.
I remember going to your site. I think one of your business colors was like a burnt orange. I don't know if it still is.
Okay.
But I remember seeing a lot of burnt orange. Every time I saw your face, you were burnt orange was somewhere in the vicinity. What was did that color? Was that a psychological choice for you, or you just like orange, or did you say, all right, I did some market research. Yeah. Burnt orange gets people's attention.
There is a psychology behind colors, but you must be a licensed public adjuster. Is that right?
So just off the colors, you knew what industry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I help public adjusters in my website which is publicadjustermarketing.com. My website is burnt orange. That's one of the colors. So,
yeah. So it sounds like you're saying you're in marketing, but you have different websites for different industries.
Well,
for the marketing.
I only have two websites. Well, 3 technically, but one of them I don't use. So I help freelancers who want to use their knowledge to help other companies. That's freelancermasterclass.com. But what you're referring to is public adjusters. I've been working with public adjusters for 3 years, helping them grow their company. My house burned down from a wildfire in 2017, and I used a public adjuster to help me rebuild the house and get everything back. I didn't have anything besides, not even the socks on my feet. I had nothing. So I discovered this whole industry of public adjusting I didn't know existed. So my passion now, one of my passions in life, is to increase the awareness of the public adjusting industry to people like myself who lose everything. So I started a marketing company to help them, because they're not marketers, to help them market their business.
Okay, so is your story typical to where you tried to handle it on your own first, or did you already knew from jump that you needed professional help?
No, we try to do it ourselves, everybody in our cul-de-sac. And then somebody said, hey, we should get a public adjuster. And like nobody in the room, we all were meeting. We're like, nobody in the room knows who that is. So we actually called a few local ones in, give us their pitch. And then I started to understand what the public adjusting industry was. We just thought we had to deal with the insurance reps on our own, and we were getting piles of paperwork and rejection letters. And it was like, I can't believe it's the only industry where you can pay for a policy and then have to fight so hard to get the money out of that policy that you're rightly owed. Like, it's totally twisted and backwards how the insurance industry works. But yeah, we just didn't realize that there was advocates that helped homeowners like ourselves. So that's how I discovered the public adjusting industry.
Perfect. So was your public adjuster your first client?
Actually, no. Interestingly enough, my public adjuster died like 3 weeks after I hired him, randomly. Just died in his sleep. It was so crazy. It was, and his whole company shut down. It was probably for the best, because it turns out that from another public adjuster I hired after that, told me some things that was very wrong with my account that he was working on. We actually got the full value of our policy from this other public adjuster, which we wouldn't have with the one that passed away. Really nice guy though. He wasn't that old, which is scary. But he was like in his mid 50s, and he died in his sleep. Really weird. But no, he was never a client of mine. The first one I got was when I threw on the website, and I started I have my team of marketers I go to. My email marketers started reaching out to people on LinkedIn and gathering emails of public adjusters and just doing cold outreach pitches. Mm-hmm. So now we have the two largest free public adjusters company in Florida working with us now.
Were they the largest prior, or they became the largest after?
No, they were the largest prior, and now they're even larger than before.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what is the marketing strategy for public adjusting pretty much the same marketing strategy for most industries?
No, it's kind of a different animal. That's why, it took me a year or two to really get my arms around what makes a public adjuster company grow. Yeah, it's a different company. You have an education layer before you have a sign on the dotted line layer there. So you have to really educate people what they are, bring them into your funnel with like Google Ads or some other networking, tell them how they can help you, and then you get them. It's a nurturing process. It's not just like something hey, it's a camera, I'm going to buy it right now, click the button and the camera's delivered to you. It doesn't work like that with the public adjusting industry.
So you introduced the term funnel. I'm with you being a marketing guy, I know what is it? Tofu, mofu, and bofu. Is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah, you got it.
All right. So based off what you're telling me, the public adjuster industry, people spend more time around the tofu.
People don't spend any time around anything. Public adjusters just don't market. They rely on referrals. But yes, in order to find somebody, you really need to start with the TOFU, which stands for top of funnel marketing. And then middle of funnel is MOFU, and bottom of the funnel is BOFU.
What's some examples of some top of funnel marketing strategies?
Yeah, top of funnel would be Google ads, Facebook ads, anything that brings top level awareness from somebody who's never heard of you. They might have a problem or an issue that you can solve. And then how are you going to get in front of them? That's top of the funnel stuff.
What's the examples of middle of the funnel?
Middle of the funnel would be a webinar, for example. That's part of the funnel that we'll do for public adjusters. So they might see a Google ad, top of the funnel, brings them into some kind of webinar, something that will help them solve their pain points, a webinar, an ebook, something along those lines.
So the webinar and ebooks that you probably recommend to your clients, do you recommend that they go through and completely create a new webinar, or just brand something that already exists?
They need to create a new one. This is public adjusting it's a relationship game. Usually things in the B2B industry are relationship, any kind of, especially in the insurance industry. So you'd want to create one that specifically addresses your expertise and how you can help them with their problem.
So middle of the funnel, what are examples of that?
That is the webinar is
No,
the
I'm
middle
sorry.
of the funnel example.
Bottom.
You mean bottom of the funnel?
Yeah, absolutely.
Email marketing. So once they get in your network, something that can, so the process here is tofu is like, they've never heard of you before. Mofu is like, okay, they're starting to understand who you are and what they can do, what you can do to help them. And then bottom of the funnel is like, okay, what do I need to do to sign on the dotted line? So it's usually email marketing is specifically designed to how I can solve your specific Joe Schmo's problem, right? It's not like a webinar where I'm speaking to a specific group of people. This is email marketing, how I can specifically help you.
So the people who don't know the different parts of this funnel and the most effective ways to reach their target demographic, where have you found has been their biggest mistake or most common mistakes?
Yeah, good question. It's definitely the top of the funnel. Google ads and Facebook ads are deceptively easy to start with and spend money with. But when I look into people's account, I'm like, oh my God, you are wasting thousands of dollars a month. You can have somebody full-time working on, you just wasted $5,000 last month. That's a salary of somebody, right? So I just found this public adjuster who, for those of you who don't know, public adjusters work only in homeowners insurance claims, right? So this public adjuster was bidding on auto insurance claims and all those other types of insurance that had nothing to do with him. So, and that's just one example. And that's very, very common because you go, a public adjuster will open an ads account and they'll say, okay, I want somebody who wants an insurance claim. And they'll type in the word insurance claim and then let it run and spend $2,000 or $5,000 a month. Oops, insurance claim. People need auto insurance claims and cracked windshields and, all this other stuff that just becomes really untargeted and a waste of money.
Okay. So I just heard you mention, now, from my understanding, I know it's probably not as big as of margins, but at least in Florida, as public adjusters, we can represent people in auto property damage. Now, not bodily injury, no injury liability, but the bodily, the physical property damage of an auto. If we were so inclined, we could assist people. The margins aren't that great, of course. I know one thing that I like to bring attention to with my friends and family, because I haven't really run into people who I don't know, but in Florida, like some other states, there is the, what's the word I'm looking for? Recoverable, man, I'm going to be mad at myself. But basically what it is I'm going to explain the concept, and it's the term going to probably come to my head. But what it is when people are typically shopping for a car, they search what's called Carfax, right? They search the VIN. And if they see the same year, make, and model car, two different cars, the one deciding factor is going to be if one has been in an accident or not. And if one of them has been in an accident, that shopper is going to likely choose the one that has not been in an accident. And if they do choose the one that's been in an accident, they're going to use it as leverage to negotiate a much cheaper price. Let's say the accident was just a rear bumper or something that didn't affect the functionality. What a lot of people in Florida are able to do, but they don't know, if you're involved in an accident and you weren't at fault, you can actually get that loss in value. And for some reason, the word is escaping me. I don't know why, but that's something that people who are listening to this, because they're probably going to listen because I'm going to tag it since you specifically do public adjuster marketing. A lot of people don't know you can, in addition to the cost of what it would take to repair your car, you can get an additional check for that loss in value for you now having an accident on your record, which is amazing. All right.
That is interesting.
All right. So, all right. Now that you're doing what you're doing now, now that you sold multiple companies, I know you said you're working on something in the background. Is that something that you're able to talk about now or not yet?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on public adjuster marketing, and I'm also working on freelancer masterclass. .com. My passion in life, I'm just trying to, now that I'm seasoned enough as an entrepreneur, I'm trying to align my passions with, my quote unquote legacy that I want to be known for. And it's really just breaking people out of the corporate rat race. And if they want to quit their job or want to work for themselves, like that's my passion. So I created publicadjustermarketing.com, which is it's not about quitting your corporate job, but it's about, being an entrepreneur, because all public adjusters are entrepreneurs. They work for themselves.
You said public adjuster marketing. Were you talking about the freelancer master?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
what
going
was that
to
site again?
transition to that. Yeah, the freelancer helps people quit their corporate job. Public adjusters, kind of along the same line, but you're already an entrepreneur at that point. So with Freelancer Masterclass, it's helping people break free from either their corporate job or they're a side hustler now. They're only making a couple $1,000s whenever they want. And just, they don't have that nudge they need to quit their corporate job and do what they really love. So I formed freelancermasterclass.com for that reason.
Got it. So one last question.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you get the Spock references because of your last name?
About twice a day, and you're the second one for the day. So
go. All right. Hey, I want to thank you so much, Michael, for coming on and having this conversation with me. You are my first guest that I've simultaneously recording the interview segment of my podcast, the EntrepreNudist podcast, and recording the video. Thank you so much. Thank you for being so responsive. One thing that I learned about people like you who, when I actually get to talk to them, their marketing is aligned with their actual person is you. And one thing about it is guys that I've come across that meet your criteria, you respond so fast. You seem so busy, but you respond so quickly.
Yeah.
How do you maintain that level of responsiveness? Yeah. And is there a reason for that?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. Some of the best clients I have are responsive, and those are make some of the best entrepreneurs. If you're an entrepreneur out there or want to be an entrepreneur, one of the best things you can do to be very, very efficient, and I'm a big productivity hacker, is structure your day, live and die by your calendar. I check my emails when my calendar tells me to. I utilize the Pomodoro Technique when I work, which is, it's a work rest pattern. If you want, go to Google Chrome and get a Pomodoro timer and just really start structuring your day, because you'll find out you can get about as much done in one day that most people will take a week to do.
Spell that,
Pomodoro. Learn how to structure your day.
Spell Pomodoro for the audience and for me.
Pomodoro is Pomodoro or ARO. Sorry, let me just Google it myself because now I'm confusing myself.
Pomodoro. It looks like it's Pomodoro.
Yes, all O's, no A's.
Got it. And you say it looks like that's a technique, but yes. I guess you're saying there are specific devices and apps that utilize that technique.
Yeah, there's a few timers. There's a web-based timer. There's some Chrome extensions. But just I would suggest looking at a blog or a YouTube video. It takes about 2 minutes to understand what they are, and then try it for a day. It's surprisingly easy, and you'll be shocked at how much you can get done in a day. Once the ability for a human to multitask, that's a fallacy. You really can't multitask. What the human brain can do, and we can talk about this on another session, and my specialty is neuroplasticity, but your brain really can't multitask. What it can do is it can do one task, but it can also do another task subconsciously, like driving and, talking to someone. Driving is subconscious most of the time, and talking you need your brain for, right? So you really can't do two things at once. That's called task switching, and it's very inefficient. What Pomodoro Technique allows you to do is focus on one task for a brief amount of time. And if you're like going to the gym, you'll understand, like you do 10 reps of something, you wait 30 seconds, you do another 10 reps because your muscles have an exhausted period where it can't take anymore. So Pomodoro Technique is kind of like doing reps for your brain. You do very focused work for a few minutes, and then you take a break. Then you do very focused work for a little bit, take a bigger break, and so on and so forth. So over time, you can get super focused, and your breaks will get smaller, and you'll be shockingly efficient.
Perfect. How can people find you and get in touch with you, Michael Volkin?
Yep, MikeVolkin.com, MikeVolkin.com, or also SpockEars.com. No, I'm just kidding. No. No, SpockEars.com. Just go to MikeVolkin.com if you want to reach out to me.
And I hate that I can't think of that term, but I hate it, man. It's driving me crazy. But it's some type of diminished value. There you go. I knew I would get it. But so the term is called diminished value. And folks, just so you know, that if you live in states like Florida, there is a extra, recovery for you, and that's the way you explain it. If your claims adjuster for your insurance carrier is telling you that what is diminished value, or they're trying to offer you the standard that they usually throw at you to get you to shut up is $200, but a lot of times it should be more than that. Just ask that person, what type of car do you drive? And let's say they say a 2004 Chevrolet pickup. Be like, well, when did you buy it? Oh, I bought it a couple years ago. Did it have an accident? No. Would you buy one that had an accident? And watch them hesitate. All right, but thank you so much, Michael Volkin, for coming on the EntrepreNudist podcast. Thank you for being so responsive, and I hope you have an amazing day and keep helping raise the awareness of public adjusters.
I will. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun. Talk
Absolutely.
to you later.
All right, bye.